What's up? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And today I'm going to be bringing you the Season 7 Episode 1 review of Dexter entitled Are You? A little bit of a weird name for episode title. I guess we're supposed to fill in the ellipses, Are You a Serial Killer? Because that's basically what the end of this episode boiled down to. But first, before I get into this episode review, a couple of things I have to let you guys know. First, I'm almost certain that I will not be reviewing every episode of this season. Almost certain about that. And the reason why is because I'm also, if any of you know me, if any of you are watching this video, if you know me or if you don't know me, I'm also a reviewer of The Walking Dead. And that's my show, man. The Walking Dead is my show. So Walking Dead's like right here, Dexter's like right here. So Walking Dead takes priority over Dexter. And I'm really not sure if I want to review two TV series at the same time. Not really sure if I'm cut out for that type of commitment. So I will be reviewing every episode of Dexter, probably 2 and 3 for sure. Maybe 4 as well, but I'm not certain, but probably the first 3. At least up until The Walking Dead comes on, which is October 14th, and really can't wait for that to come on. My initial reactions after watching this episode, holy shit. That was literally, those are the words that came out of my mouth in that final scene where Dexter comes back in his house and Deb is sitting in his living room. I'm like, holy shit. So first of all, let me say this. Spoiler warning. And I'm pretty sure that, well, actually some of you people might be watching this intending not to be spoiled. I know at least some of my viewers like to do that. They like to watch my review without having watched the episode. But I'm going to let you know right now that you should go and watch this episode before you watch this review, because there are going to be massive spoilers throughout. Well, at least right now I'm about to give you a major spoiler. So if you haven't watched the episode yet, go back and watch it. Then come back and watch my review. But yeah, man. So Dexter comes back home. In the final scene of this episode, Dexter comes back home from having killed Victor, and Deb is there waiting in his living room with this shit all over his living room. And she's got the box of slides in front of her and the hand from the ice truck killer and all of his knives out. Whoa. Whoa. Holy shit. So at this point, the gig is up. That's pretty much all we can say. The gig is up. She knows that Dexter's a serial killer. And I don't think it will take her very long to figure out that Dexter is probably also the Bay Harbor Butcher. So the gig is up. The big revelation has come upon us. But I will say this. Immediately after my initial reactions to the closing scene of this episode, I started to think about what the hell could they have planned for the next 11 episodes of this season. And for the next season, for that matter, because it's pretty much been confirmed that next season is the last season. And I can see how them having the revelation so early in what is, in effect, the beginning of the end could pose some major problems in terms of pacing for them. And here's what I mean. The revelation has just happened. Deb has just found out that her brother, Dexter, is a serial killer, and she'll probably figure out that he's also the Bay Harbor Butcher. So it seems like there's a major possibility that they could destroy their pacing by having 22, in effect, 23 more episodes where they drag this thing out. And that could be very, very problematic, because the major source of the dramatic tension, or what a lot of us expected to be the dramatic tension for this episode, was going to be the stuff leading up to the eventual revelation. And at least for me, I didn't expect that revelation to come in the final scenes of the very first episode. I thought that they would build up to it, that they would have a process whereby Debra would her suspicions about Dexter would grow, and then sometime during this season the revelation would finally come upon her. But I didn't expect it to happen this fast. So it seems like there's a major possibility that the wind could be out of their cells. That part of the dramatic tension of this episode has now been released with the advent of the revelation. And I think that could potentially pose some problems in terms of pacing. And I'm not sure if they could find a way to write this season in a way that allows them to have the same amount of dramatic tension they would have had the revelation not occurred so soon, so early in the season. So that's just my initial reaction to the final scene of this episode. So now let me get into the summary, at least a little bit more in depth in terms of the summary and analysis of this episode. So the episode starts off with a little bit of deceptive foreshadowing. It looks like Dexter's on the run. We see him stop at a gas station, but all of his credit cards are declined. And actually we find out in this episode that the reason why his credit cards were declined in this scene is because Lewis, Jamie's boyfriend, Jamie, the sister of Detective Bautista. Is her name Jamie? Yeah, her name is Jamie, but her real name is Amy Garcia. That's the actress who plays Jamie. But her boyfriend hacked into Dexter's bank accounts and closed them all, deleted them all. So that's why his credit cards were declined in this scene. And then we see him he has to go into his escape bag, and he's got different passports and money in his escape bag. And then we see him go to the airport and buy a ticket to go to Budapest. So it looks like in this scene, Dexter's on a run, but it's a little bit of deceptive foreshadowing, because we see later on that what this really is about is Dexter's on a kill mission, and he has to buy a ticket to Budapest in order to keep his identity under wraps. And that's basically what was going on here. So it wasn't like Dexter was on the run. So a little bit of deceptive foreshadowing in that opening scene. But then we cut back into what was the final scene of the last season's season finale episode. And so this scene pretty much starts with Deb having a big what the fuck moment. So, and initially when I watched this scene, I was thinking, are Debra's actions plausible? And then I thought about how I would act if I were in this situation. And I actually have an older brother. And so I thought about how I would feel if I happened to walk in on my brother just as he was plunging a knife into somebody's chest. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty much how I might react. Like, what the fuck is going on? What the hell is going on? You've got some explaining to do. So Dexter starts off with his explanations. Of course, Debra's like, what the fuck's going on, Dexter? Why do you have Travis Marshall plastic wrapped on top of this table? What the hell's going on? And Dexter's, of course, he's shocked. He's all fumbling for words. I have a lot of pent up anger from when Rita died. Travis Marshall came at me with the sword, and it was self-defense. I think I just blacked out, and I don't really remember what happened. Everything happened so fast. And so obviously he's going to try and claim self-defense. The classic maneuver of everybody caught in a situation where they have no explanation for how this dead body got here. Classic self-defense maneuver. And at first it looks like Deb believes him. And I was thinking, now this really isn't plausible. If she's going to believe him, if she's really going to entertain this idea of this was self-defense, because we see that Dexter's got on his butcher's apron, he's got on gloves, he's got on plastic sleeves, he's got the Travis Marshall all plastic wrapped on top of the table, he's got an array of knives. I'm like, come on, man, you can't claim self-defense, man. You got this nigga plastic wrapped on the table. You're not getting away with self-defense. But it looks like Debra wants to believe him. And this is a classic reaction to trauma. And everybody knows that the brain is pretty much hardwired for pattern recognition. And so when we're confronted with a situation that we can't immediately put into a recognizable pattern, what we do is we try to make the facts fit our own expectations. And I suspect this is what happened to Debra, because she just seemed to be so shocked by what was going on. And honestly, who wouldn't be shocked by having seen their sibling just plunge a knife into somebody's chest? And you can tell that she really doesn't believe the self-defense, that what she's doing is engaging in a sort of delusional self-defense mechanism, because she actually says to Dexter, okay, I'm going to get you a lawyer. You're going to claim temporary insanity. And if she really believed that this was self-defense, then she wouldn't have to talk about, temporary insanity. So Deb says, okay, I'm going to get you a lawyer. You're going to claim temporary insanity. And what she does is she says, I'm going to have to call this in. And then Dexter's like, no, we can't call this in. It won't look right. How are we going to explain this? And then they finally come up with a plan to stage the scene to make it look like Travis Marshall killed himself, to make it seem like this is just his final tableau, to make it seem like he's so distraught over the world not coming to an end, like he predicted that the next step is just for him to kill himself. And so Dexter's going to have to stage the scene to make it look like a suicide, and Deb goes out to get gasoline so that they can burn the church down and hopefully burn up any evidence that's left there as well. And so Deb goes out to get the gasoline, and while Deb is doing that, Dexter is trying to hurry up and stage the scene. And while he's staging the scene, he moves the plastic wrap, and apparently he forgets that he has the blood slide on the plastic wrap. So when he moves the plastic wrap, the blood slide falls into something that looks like a grate or something. And later on, LaGuerta finds this blood slide, and now it looks like she's rethinking the Bay Harbor Butcher case, because she's got a blood slide that's supposed to be the MO of the Bay Harbor Butcher, and the Bay Harbor Butcher was supposedly Dokes, but he's dead. So whose blood slide is this? So it looks like, and this is just my speculation, but I think at some point Dexter is probably going to get caught. That's just my speculation based on what happened in this episode, but Dexter is known for getting out of some very tight situations, so we'll see. But also what this scene reveals, with Dexter dropping the blood slide into that grate and LaGuerta eventually finding the blood slide, is we get to see some insight into Harry's forethought, and particularly, and also what we also get to see is that there's some plastic that gets left that's not completely burned, and it gets stuck. I think it's stuck to Travis Marshall's foot, and Dexter, while no one's looking, he has to hurry up and grab this plastic wrap off of Travis Marshall's body when when everybody else finally gets there and finds Travis Marshall's dead body. And what we see again is the sort of depth of Harry's forethought, and we get to see the depth of the dark relationship between Harry and Dexter, and the consequences that this sort of dark relationship will have for the relationship between Dexter and Debra. Because if you think about it, Debra is the main reason why Dexter is about to get caught. If it wasn't for Debra's, or at least I think that Dexter's going to get caught. Because if you think about it, if it wasn't for Debra's interference, then LaGuerta would have never found that blood slide. And what this shows is that it's because of Harry's rules that Dexter has always been able to be one step ahead. But now that Debra is being inserted into the mix, she's going to have to find out that her father, Harry, is not the person that she thought he was. And now she's going to have to come to grips with the fact that Harry is implicated in this whole dark, I don't even know what to call it, this whole dark scenario, basically, because Harry's is the one that's always been there to try and keep Dexter's dark passenger in check, at least in some delusional sense, because Harry's dead. He's not really there. And this is just a part of Dexter's delusion or psychosis, if you will, that he gets manifested as somebody who's able to guide him through this situation. But yeah, um, this is just going to be a very, very interesting development as we move throughout the season. And what we see is that as the episode goes on, Debra becomes more and more suspicious of Dexter, and this happens in a couple of ways. The first way is that after the whole scene with Travis Marshall where they stage it and everybody comes and finds Travis Marshall's body at the burned down church, she starts thinking about this, and she goes back to Dexter and she asks him, what you said didn't make sense, and the whole scenario didn't make sense. Why did you have on your gloves? Why did you have on that apron? Where did all of that plastic wrap come from? And Dexter's response is, well, that's just a part of my kit. Double entendre. And pretty funny, actually, because it is a part of his forensics kit, but it's also a part of his serial killer kit, and a pretty funny bit of dramatic irony there. And the second way that Debra starts to become suspicious of Dexter is that she realizes that there's a similarity in the method between Dexter, the way Dexter had Travis wrapped up in that plastic wrap, and the way Brian, aka the ice truck killer, had her wrapped up in that plastic. And she starts to wonder about the similarity in the methods between Dexter and Brian. And she's thinking to herself, this couldn't have just been, this couldn't have happened spontaneously. This had to have been set up this way. And another way that she becomes suspicious of Dexter is that she finds out that he's not where he says he's going to be. I think when she talks to Masuka, she comes into the lab and Masuka's in the lab, but Dexter's not there. But when she goes and calls Jamie to find out where Dexter is, she realizes that Jamie thinks he's supposed to be in the lab. So she's thinking to herself, where is Dexter? Where is he? And so, yeah. And another thing that I think might be potentially problematic in terms of pacing, not just the whole the advent of the revelation or the exposing of the revelation, but I would have liked there to be some more intervening time in between Debra's mounting suspicion and her finding out that Dexter is a serial killer. And the reason why I say that is because I would have liked to see Debra grapple with the sort of, from a psychological standpoint, I would have liked to see her grapple with her suspicions about her brother's dark personality. And I would have liked to see how that produced some sort of internal characterization within Debra, and not just external characterization with respect to her relationship with Dexter. Obviously, the whole revelation of Dexter as a serial killer is going to lead to some major external characterization for Debra, but I would like to have seen some internal characterization, and I would like to have seen her grapple with her suspicions about her brother a little bit more before she finally realized that her brother was a serial killer. Just personal preference on my part. And also throughout this episode, there was sort of a frame story that was a backstory with Dexter and Debra. Apparently there was a time when Debra's mother had brought her a dog, but then Harry, immediately realizing that there was the potential that Dexter might kill this dog, had eventually basically had to get rid of the dog. And we see here how Debra having to give up that dog when she was a child has some very, very powerful symbolism. And it's basically symbolic of the way in which Dexter's dark passenger has always functioned as not just an intermediary between him and the world. Obviously, that's the case because he's a sociopath, but in the very, very visceral way that he can't develop a relationship between Debra, but also in the way that Debra could never really develop a relationship with Dexter. And we see that there's a sort of reciprocal relationship going on here. It's not just that Dexter can't develop a relationship with Debra, it's that Debra never really got to develop a relationship with Dexter because she never really was able to know who Dexter really was. And that's why I say it's because of this reciprocal relationship that I say I would have liked to have more internal characterization with Debra rather than external characterization with respect to her relationship with her brother. Because I would have liked to have her grapple with that growing revelation about the fact that she doesn't really know who Dexter is before she really found out that he was a serial killer. So I thought that whole backstory would have, and the symbolism behind that backstory would have been a little bit better if they would have developed some internal characterization for Debra a little bit more than they did. So yeah, those are just basically my thoughts on this first episode. And basically I predict that, and actually now that I think about it, I'm not even sure if Dexter will be caught in this season. Because again, there's a whole nother season that's pretty much been confirmed for Dexter. So perhaps this season might end with LaGuardia finding out that Dexter really is the Bay Harbor Butcher, or I don't know how that's going to go, but I suspect that Debra won't be able to keep this secret. I don't think she'll be able to keep the secret, and I don't think that Dexter is going to be able to keep his secret from LaGuardia. So all in all, I think this, aside from the potential problems I see in terms of the pacing of the rest of the season, and missed opportunity for Debra's internal characterization, besides those things, I think this was a pretty good episode. So this was your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga. Just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day.